Yeah.
Do it, yeah, bitch.
I said it, bitch.
You do it better than me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of want to touch on that. What happened? Because you're like a highly decorated SEAL. You got all these awards for valor, and you you went through all these special training missions. What happened that got you? Eight. How many times you deployed?
Nine. Boom,
Nine. Shit, dude. I thought when I was in Marine Corps, when I heard about people like being a grunt, when I thought of the grunts and SEALs, I thought maybe people would do that shit for 4 years and then switch over to something else. But people like you actually did it your entire career,
Yeah.
and you actually retired a SEAL.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think during the time that we were, myself and my generation were able to be in, I mean, it was if you really wanted to join and go to war and actually do that, then we joined at the right time, and we got 20 years of it. So, I mean, that is what I joined to do. Like I told you, even though I had no real idea of what like a warrior, like somebody like that is, I was like, that's what I want, and I just kept after it. And 9/11 happened, and it was like that's it. So we got to just keep deploying to combat over and over. And so near the end of my career was obviously my last deployment. We went to Mosul, Iraq, when we were trying to get rid of ISIS out of there, and which was awesome deployment. Trump was in office; he had just gotten office, so we actually got a full-on directive, which was to eliminate them all. So we just pushed through that whole city and tried to kill as many of them as we could. And so at the end of that deployment, we came home, and
everything was good, right?
Everything was the deployment good. We know the mission was accomplished, but during that deployment, there was some toxicity going on within the platoon. I was the platoon leader, enlisted leader as a platoon chief, and some of the dudes, actually it's like three of the dudes that worked underneath me didn't like me. We weren't
people that you was basically you was their manager.
Yeah, it's you're the man, you're the lead on tactical expertise. Like you're the one who's like, if you're going to go out and do a mission, you're going to be working all the tactics on that mission and sort of determining like, hey, this is how we're going to take down this target. And then you're also in lead when you're out there actually doing the job. The officer, you have an officer in charge, obviously. That's sort of like corporate level.
Right.
And then you have an LPO who's below the chief. That is sort of like the manager. So you're like, hey, this is what I want done. The LPO then goes and executes it and delegates to everybody else. So I had like three guys in that platoon that, our personalities didn't jive.
How long have those guys been in?
So I was 10 years older than the oldest dude in that platoon. So,
okay.
So there was a big generational gap as well.
Yeah, they're babies.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, compared to me, it was, and none of them had combat experience at all.
Wow. But you went on 8 deployments.
Yeah, so that's all I had been doing. So it was definitely, it was different, but these guys were, they said they wanted it. They're like, this is what we signed up for. And then when we got over there and actually got into the show, they sort of showed their ass a little bit. You could see, they weren't comfortable with a lot of stuff that was going on. And I'll give them this, that was a chaotic deployment. There was a lot of, what do you call it?
Death.
A lot of death.
Discrepancies.
A lot of watching women and kids and men get mowed down in front of us by ISIS. So, I mean, it was a lot to take on for somebody that's never been to combat. So I'll give them that benefit of the doubt. But the problem with them, much like the problem with a lot of that generation and just what I'm seeing now, is like there's no accountability. It's like, hey, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Instead, they blamed the leader. This is your fault that you put me in this situation. You're making me do these things. So that toxicity sort of built up. During that deployment, those three were trying to get other people to join them, in the platoon, like, hey, just hating on me all the time.
That's crazy because many times you want to deploy in these war combat zones and they have no experience and they're attacking you for doing what they sign up to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's weak. That's just a sign of weakness. But nevertheless, it's what they did. But even, we finished out the deployment and we got home and they kept that going. So they went to the command, and so I got some accolades from that deployment. I got number 1 chief. I was getting put in for awards, stuff like that. And so they went.
That must have really pissed them off.
Oh yeah. They were not happy about that. So they went to the command and were like, hey, this guy, he's dangerous. Like, his tactics are dangerous. He was making us do dangerous stuff out there. So the command was like, well, what was he making do that was dangerous? And so they'd explain it, and the command was like, nope, those are tactics. Like, we've been doing those for the past 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So then they just kept escalating their allegations, trying to get something. So like, oh, well, he was stealing from us. And they're like, what? And they're like,
Stole from him.
yeah, so I stole.
When you
Eating
stole
the
from
the
him and
MREs?
went to the Jack Shack?
yeah, that's it. Brought back my Marine Corps days. Yeah.
What did they say you stole?
Let's see, a Red Bull out of the fridge, which was 6 months, prior. And
So
then
you did take
I mean, I'm like, maybe, maybe I did take
right.
a Red. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
this.
so-
Why are you bringing this up 6 months later?
yeah,
Like,
it's a fucking Red Bull, right?
yeah, power bars out of like the care packages. Like, it was such like petty BS. And then
Right.
once again, the command was like, get out of here. Like,
Right.
this isn't
Right.
an issue. And then it wasn't until probably 8 weeks later they came back to like, we saw him stab an ISIS prisoner to death. And so
A prisoner?
yeah, in which we'll get to that because
Yeah.
there was no prisoners on that deployment. We weren't taking any. So the command's like, all right. And they were like, are you you want to go through with this? And they're like, yeah. And so the command's like, all right. And I don't blame you. The command had to report it. They're like, this is a war crime or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, law of armed conflict. So that
Right.
got,
They have to let him pursue it, right?
yeah, so that pretty much got, reported to NCIS, which is Naval Criminal Investigative Service. They also actually do belong to the Marine Corps as well.
They're like the military's FBI, right?
Actually, you know what? At this point, you can compare them to the FBI. Yeah. Right. They're fucking, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's like, they're like the hallway monitors at school back in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Little nerds. So once those guys took over, like I said, you have a bunch of nerds that never amounted to anything in their life except for trying to investigate people actually doing the job. This guy, Joe Rapinski, took the case, and he was like the worst combination of ambition and incompetence you've ever seen. So he wanted to he's like, dude, I'm going to make a case out of this.
That's crazy that he's attacking a war veteran and something he's never experienced. He's never walked those
Yeah.
shoes.
Oh, that was my whole trial. Like the amount of people that were condemning me for, whatever my actions or my past career, none of them had any experience. None of them had even been to Iraq or Afghanistan, or probably could point it out on a map.
That's insane.
Yeah, they were weak. I mean, it's just dudes trying to make a career, climb that ladder, and they don't care who they take down. So yeah, this guy took the case, and it was pretty much I was guilty. Like we're gonna get this dude no matter what. So they ended up. Eventually, I was told they're like, hey, you're under investigation. And I was like, all right, what do I do? And then no one would help me. They were like, my whole command, like, completely backed away from me. They're like, you're on your own. So I ended up, I got a lawyer. I talked to a lawyer, actually. I didn't hire one. I was like, hey, what do I do? He was like, hey, well, this lawyer worked for a nonprofit called United American Patriots. And what they said they would do, they're like, if your case starts going the way you think it's going to go, we will defend you. And we'll step in and help, no charge. This is what we do. And I was like, all right, sweet. So it wasn't until like months later is when they raided my house, and my wife and I weren't home.
They raided your house.
Oh yeah, dude.
What the hell were they looking for?
That's the thing. It's they didn't even have to do that. It was these are all tactics done to drive fear into your family, break your family apart, and it's also to drive fear into everyone else from talking to you. So
Okay,
when they raided my house, they sent. I mean, it was like I was a freaking cartel leader, man. Like the SUVs blocking off all the streets. They were yelling people to get inside. So my youngest son, who was 8 at the time, and my oldest, who had just turned 18, they pulled them out at gunpoint in their underwear. And that's when I mean gunpoint, like guns at their heads, like got them out in the street.
Had kids.
Yeah. My wife, like I said, my wife wasn't home. Neither was I. I was actually being interrogated at the time. So
they knew who was home. They didn't have to.
They knew. All this shit was done on purpose. Like there's no, we didn't know. It's like they planned it out. Everything they do is, like I said, to use as a scare tactic or to like drive fear into you. Like, hey,
big
right, I'll do whatever you want. Don't. And I mean, it's done by just weak individuals.
It sounds so un-American. What you did for our country and for them to treat you like that.
Yeah, it is. It's completely un-American. Even if you don't serve your country. You can't just do that to an American citizen.
Right.
Right.
That's violates I don't know how many rights. But the thing is, when you're in the military, you don't have the rights that you
Right.
think you do. And
Right,
you find
right.
that out when you're put in a situation like this. So, yeah, my wife ended up coming home halfway through the raid. They started interrogating her. She was like, "Why are you guys here?" And they're like, "Your
They're
husband."
interrogating your wife.
Yeah, they were like, "Your husband is a murderer." She's like, "Well, who did he murder?" And they're like, "ISIS, an ISIS member." And she's like, she's looking at him like,
So
This
they're
is-
attacking you for killing ISIS.
yeah. She must have thought she was on candid camera. She was like, "Do you know what my husband does for a living?"
Right,
yeah.
But it didn't matter. They as soon as they did that, I moved my family to Florida. I was like, I'm retiring. Moved them down there. I had a year left, so I came back to San Diego to just geobatch until I got out. And so when I came back and I was by myself, I went to a TBI clinic called Intrepid Spirits, where you get checked out for all the times you've been blown up and hurt and everything. Because a lot like I'm sure you guys know guys in the Marine Corps and in the SEALs, like you won't go to medical. You're like, no, I can suck it up and keep going.
Yeah.
But when you get out, you're like, hey, I want to get checked out so I can get the benefits I deserve.
Right.
So while I was there, they came and raided that. Well, not raided, but they came in and arrested me out of there on September 11th of all days. They picked that day to do it. And that, again, done on purpose because they knew that is the reason I was doing what I've been doing for the past 20. They thought that would drive some kind of invoke some reaction out of me.
Intimidation and stuff.
Yeah. So they came and got me and just threw me in military prison that day. I didn't resist. I was like, this is ridiculous. This is a mistake. I literally thought when they put me in there, I was like, I'm going to be out of here in like 2 days.
Right.
9.5 months later.
Wow, 9.5 months.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're a flight risk.
No. Well, here's the thing. So when you're in there, they have this kangaroo court. I forget what they call it. There's a name for it, but pretty much you're in there for like a week, and they pick an officer from the base. It was on Miramar Air Station in San Diego. So they pick him to come in and be your judge, and it's to determine whether.
This is the officer?
Yeah. So this officer comes in, and he's going to determine whether or not you're a threat or you belong and should stay in prison before your trial, or they can let you out. And so I go into this room. This guy, this officer they picked off the base, is sitting there, and that's when the prosecutor came in and Joe Warpinski, the NCIS agent, and they pretty much gave this 30-minute act. They're like, he has done this, like all the qualifications I have had over my career, they use against me. They're like, he's sniper, he's this, he's that, like he's a danger to the case, like. They were trying to act like I was Jason Bourne. Like, if we let him out now, he's going to escape. He's a danger to the investigation. But then they started attacking my character, like making up lies. They're like, he's a fake Christian. He beats his wife. All like just saying this shit. Like, and none of it was true.
Right.
But they rattled off all these like insane accusations attacking my character. And I'm looking at my lawyer because he was in there, and I'm like, dude, are you going to say something? He's like, and so this guy was like, this is the way it is. Like, they can. So as soon as they gave that act, the judge is like, no, you're staying. And
That's crazy. Nothing about to back it up.
nope,
No
you're not
statements.
you're
no
not allowed to
video.
defend yourself. You just have to sit there and take it. So after that, obviously they were like, you're not getting out. And I just stayed. I stayed in Gen Pop for the rest of the time.
That's crazy. These officers, they're supposed to be our smartest and our brightest. Nobody said, wait a minute, this is wrong.
No, man, because in order to do that, you have to have some kind of moral fiber and moral courage to stand up and do the right thing. But I think we've seen over the past 15 years the deprogression of leadership not in our country, right? And our officers are no different. They're getting trained at these academies where they're being told, this is how you climb the ladder. This is how you make a career of yourself. It doesn't matter what you do to the men and women below you. Where it used to be taught, you serve the men and women below you. You are a leader that they should look up to. And I had officers like that when I first came in, but now it's tainted. That
Everybody's
whole
like trying
officer
to-
corps is tainted.
Yeah, everybody's trying to stand on each other to move up.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's so that's why
That's horrible, man.
You don't have anybody, and I found that out during my whole process, right? Because I had no idea. I never paid attention to just how bad the political crap was in the military. I mean,
Right.
you always knew officers when they get to a certain rank are sort of politicians in uniform, right? But you just didn't know how bad it actually was. And so during my whole thing, I saw, like you said, people that I thought were stand-up people that I thought actually had values. And I mean, and these are teammates that I went to war with that literally stood on the wayside. They're like, you're on your own, man.
Yeah.
Like, good luck. I'm not going to say what they're doing to you is wrong or right, because I don't want to get punished either.
Right.
And that's, and they drive fear into everybody doing that, right? That's
What
how
were
they
you
do it.
actually charged with?
So initially, well, I wasn't sure. I was in prison for about 2.5 months before I got officially charged. And then they came at me. It was premeditated murder.
Of who?
ISIS.
You're supposed to kill him.
Yeah, I can't make this shit up. So it was premeditated murder of ISIS. I was facing life without parole. That was what I was facing. Like, you're going away for life. And as soon as that hit the media, the reaction is just like, people were like, well, what the fuck? Like, this is what we're sending them over to do.
Right.
So then they realized that hurts the case. So what they did is they slapped on 2 more murder charges. So I went to a hearing, and because I had all sorts of like little hearings leading up to the actual trial. Yeah. And during this hearing, they were like, we are going to add 2 more murder charges. He murdered a little girl and a old man on Father's Day. And again, I was like, where is this coming from? And they didn't have to. They were like, yep, throw those on there too. So then I was facing 3 murder charges plus like a slew of just BS military
something about a picture,
conduct
right?
Unbecoming. Yeah. I took a picture with 12 other individuals with the ISIS fighter.
But they wasn't charged.
No, none of that mattered. It was just me.
It's just you. You know, were you the only white guy in the picture? That is crazy. That is insane.
Yeah,
It sounds like almost like a comedy sketch.
And that's literally what it could be, man. I mean, it's like going to trial in that military courtroom. My wife said it best. She's like, this is like a slash between A Few Good Men and My Cousin Vinny. She's like, this is a joke. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask that. So you were in the picture beside the body.
Yeah.
Who took the fucking picture?
One of the guys in the platoon. Yeah.
So wait a minute. So he's like, I'm going to take a picture.
Yeah. And what they sold it as is I forced everybody into that picture.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You kill it. Your mission is to go out and kill ISIS.
Yeah.
You kill them before they kill you, and you can't take a picture?
That's the thing. I think I'm the first person ever to get charged in a court-martial for taking a picture with a dead enemy combatant.
You know what's crazy? When I was in Marine Corps, it was 2 days before we graduated from boot camp. And a bunch of parents came. I forget what they called it. They called it Parents' Day. I think that's what they called it. It was 2 days before graduation.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Parents' Day. And a bunch of the kids' fathers showed up. All of them had pictures of dead Vietnamese people they killed. Everybody.
Yeah.
It was like the thing to do when you're in combat.
Photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kill the enemy, you take a picture.
Yeah, it's like when you go hunting, you kill something big, you're like, I'm proud of what I just killed.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Actually there's a process. I mean, y'all had a camera there for a reason. Is that common to take pictures in certain circumstances or no?
No. Well, it depends on the mission, right? So, if you go out and hit a target and you're doing, we call SSE, sensitive site exploitation, where you're gathering intel, then you go out and take pictures of like, hey, here's the dude we shot, here's the gun next to him,
right?
Here's the stuff we found, in his room or on his body. There is points, there is a point to taking pictures sometimes or video. Right. For this, no, this was purely done out of just like we were fucking around.
But y'all's environment, man, you can't have a break.
That's the thing. It's hard to explain to people, right? Because even with the picture, people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're so unprofessional, and this is like so bad." And I'm like, "Listen, I get, and I'll agree." I'm like, "Is it unprofessional? Yes, for sure." Like, but at the same time, like, you're not in that environment with us, where literally the picture that we took. Right down the street, there's a pile of dead bodies of women and kids. Like, we're around it 24/7. So I think we're
desensitized.
You're not even thinking twice. You're like, this is whatever. It's a joke, Like,
and the person that you've killed is not really a person. It's just some evil, vile, disgusting person who doesn't even value life.
Yeah, and that's what they were. And so to go back to people's reaction, they're like, oh yeah, it's ISIS. Who cares? Well, then the media starts reporting, well, he was 13, he was 14. He was probably 17 or 18 years old. And here's the thing, which I don't care, you know, these liberal, whatever, they want to try to make something out of it. I'm like, war is pretty simple. I'm like, it's us versus you. I'm like, and if you pick up a gun, you're in the game. And the only way out of the game is death. And I'm playing the same game as you. So that's it. I don't care what age, gender you are. Like if you pick up a weapon and you're on the other side, well, then you're gone.
Dude, I was 14. I knew right from wrong.
And that's, so, I mean, it was ludicrous.
An 8-year-old girl can kill you just like a 35-year-old man can with a gun. So.
And that's been done the past 20 years as well. I mean, they use women and kids, suicide
What's some of the
vests.
foulest shit you seen out there when you was in that particular deployment? That ISIS would pull.
Well, dude,
Just some fucked up shit, huh?
like one place we went to, there was a park that used to be a park. It was all bombed out, but they had kids' heads on spikes.
Kids?
Like kids' heads decapitated, put their heads on like the fence around there.
On the top of the fence?
Yeah. You know, in order to get into sniper positions, sometimes we'd have to like push up and trying to get into these buildings, and these buildings would be blocked off by dead bodies, like piles of dead bodies. So we'd have to climb over the dead bodies to get into the buildings. That was pretty gnarly at times. And then some of the worst is just watching them. So we'd be, you know, separated by like 600-700 yards crossing a field or like a pretty open space. And so ISIS would release like 20 women and kids sprinting towards us and then just mow them down halfway through to see if they would pull us out to go save them. Right. And so, you know, the Iraqis that we were with would run out sometimes and then they get blasted too. So it was just, it was foul. Then they would, they knew we had ISR and, you know, in the air watching, looking for stuff to bomb. So what they would do is put cardboard cutouts on the roof of people with guns, so it would look like, you know, somebody who's flying the drone or whatever, like, hey, there's 2 guys with guns on that building. So they'd be like, all right, man, drop a hellfire into it. But what ISIS would do is chain civilians in the house. And so when we would bomb it, then they would use that as propaganda, like, see what they just did? They're killing civilians. When they were the ones, you know, they set up those cardboard cutouts out there. I mean, they knew what they were doing. So, I mean, I don't know if it can get any fouler, you know, especially, you know, with women and kids. It's like that's about as nasty as it gets.
Women are treated really bad in those countries. Huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's one story. I went up. I was going up wrecking a spot one day, and there was a woman trying to cross this road, and one of the Iraqi forces, there was like multiple Iraqi forces out there, was there at the corner, and she ran towards them, and she got hit by a sniper and in her arm, but she made it across, and she had a baby with her. And so I went over and I pulled out my blowout kit, and I just bandaged her up real quick, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a spot somewhere near here. And they started talking in Iraqi to her, and it started getting like confrontational, and one of the dudes just like executed her right there in front of me, which I was like, after I had treated her. And so I asked one of the Terps to come up. I'm like, why did they just do that? And he's like, oh, she's the wife of an ISIS fighter.
Wow.
That was it, you know? So, I mean, it was
all they needed, huh?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's the environment that we were in. There was no, there wasn't an American-led war either. So there was no rules. It was pretty savage. So yeah, I mean, it was, and that's, you know, to bring it back to like the picture and everything, when they were making a big deal out of that, that's what was such a joke. You're like, after everything we just went through on those 6 months, everything we saw, this is wrong. Yeah.
Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bulls and
energy bars.
Yeah. It was a joke.
That must have put a lot of strain on your marriage, though. Huh?
You would think, man, but dude, I'm married to a
good
straight, like the best, bro. She's my best friend. We were best friends in high school.
Cool.
We met up later on in life and got married. But yeah, as soon as that happened, dude, she stood up and started fighting back. She's the only reason I'm sitting here today. She literally took to social media and started her own organic social media campaign, pretty much putting out everything that they were doing to me. Because while I was locked up, they were also violating my rights. So they would not let me see my lawyers. That was like a privilege.
Right.
So, dude, they had this. So there was different pods. I think there's like 4 different pods in there, and I was in one of the pods, which general population. And so you were assigned a I don't even counselor or what the name is, and it was this black chick named Rashida.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Could it get any worse?
I'm telling you, bro, this was like, dude, she did not give a shit. And she, so she hated me. She would come in and so they would make rules up for stuff that I was doing. So if I was doing push-ups in my cell, they'd be like, hey, no one's allowed to do push-ups in their cell anymore. No working out. Oh, yeah. The prisoners started calling it the Eddie rules. They're like, oh, Eddie must have been doing, because that's how bad they were targeting me in there. They wanted me to snap. So if you have
I'll tell you right now, they put a black woman on me, I'm gonna snap.
So listen to this shit, dude. This is just the environment that you're in. So if you're not able to see your lawyer, I wasn't able to get medical treatment. They just deny you everything. So then they have a complaint box where you can complain, be like, hey, I'm not able to see my lawyer. Well, due to Rashida not letting me see my lawyer. Well, guess where those complaints go? Straight to her. So Rashida would come in and be like, oh, Gallagher, get over here. And I'm like, she's like, so I ain't letting you see your lawyers? You're going to complain? She's like, well, now you ain't going to see him for another 2 months. And she would walk out. I'm not shitting you, dude.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing going on in Georgia with Trump. Yeah. And then that black woman up in New York. Yeah. It's like everybody's prosecuting Trump as black. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with black people?
Yeah, she was a trip, man. And then So, I mean, all that was going on. So I'm telling my wife all this over the phone. Like, hey, she's putting everything out on social media. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the actual truth about what's going on, combating the whole mainstream media narrative. And so she got a bunch of followers, and then people started catching on. And then eventually, my brother at the same time lived in D.C. So he was going to Congress every day, knocking on doors do something, this is wrong, what's going on. And unfortunately, not a lot of people were paying. They were like, well, there's nothing we can do, We ended up getting 50 signatures from some congressmen, all on the Republican side. Wow. But eventually, they both got invited on to Fox and Friends to talk about it, and that's where Trump, who was president at the time, got involved. He saw what was going on. And so when I was in there one day, we're walking to breakfast, and one of the guards stops me, and he's like, are you getting out today? And I was like, I don't fucking know. And he's like, well, the president just tweeted about you. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he said to let you out. And literally later that day, I get let out, but not fully. I get let out, but then my command comes and locks me in a barracks room, and they're like, you can't leave this barracks room. So pretty much I'm back in prison again for another month and a half. And this time, was not allowed to see any of my lawyers.
Did your wife, kids come? Or?
So my wife and kids, obviously they were living in Florida, and I was locked up in California. But my wife would fly out. I was allowed visitation on Sundays, I think. And so you get about a 2-hour visitation. So when she came down, she was able to see me on that day when she came and visited. I had a really tight group of friends that came every weekend just to visit and talk. But even with that, and so the prison that I was in was mainly all sex offenders. It was a sex offender prison. So
what?
Yeah. So it was all.
They kept you in a sex.
Yeah. So
dude,
it was
this
all
sound like pure hell.
It was just ridiculous, And these people weren't they're not a threat. These sex offenders are weak men, right? So it wasn't like I wasn't worried about anything happening to me. But at the same time, what really pissed me off is when my youngest son came to visit me. He was one of the first times I got to see him. I was not allowed to embrace him, not allowed to touch him. He came in with a tank top on. They made him wear a gown, a hospital gown over him. And I'm like, why has he got to wear this? And they're like, because he'll excite the other prisoners if they see his bare skin.
Wow.
That are and you're not allowed to touch him because that'll also excite them too. And we don't want them to, get excited because they already are mentally ill. So, so that, all that shit was pretty ridiculous. And, but I'll tell you what, man. Like, if it wasn't for my wife and brother, I mean, my wife was like the rock, man. Like, kept my whole family together and did not refuse to let the government drive us apart like they wanted to. She just kept fighting, and they literally did not know what to do. She, by the end of it, her Instagram account and everything she was doing was being briefed in the Pentagon.
Really?
Yeah, that's how much of a pain in the ass she was to them. They were like, this chick is like destroying us at every angle.
Yeah, that's the picture of your wife in your book right there.
Yep. So that's the day we walked. That was the day of the verdict when we walked out, when I got found not guilty. And that her face is perfect. Like, I told you so, motherfuckers.
Her face is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
She got this look like kiss
Exactly.
white ass.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's where we also got the the fuck around and find out thing, is that was her. They tried to pull all this slick, deceitful shit the whole time, and she would catch them on it, put it out there, and then they like couldn't get away with it. So she was like, yeah, fuck around and find out. She's like, keep trying. Like, I'm just gonna keep calling you out. And
That's crazy. Our own government treating a Navy SEAL like that.
well, that's our own government treating the president of the United States. I mean, and that's the thing. I wouldn't like seeing how this country is being run now and the things that we're seeing. I mean, right in front of us. I think some people are like, holy shit, I can't. We're like, yep, this doesn't surprise us one bit.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think this is all new tactics, what they did to you and Trump.
No.
I think they used it for like foreign forces, foreign governments. They would use stuff like what they did to you and Trump.
Oh, yeah.
But now our government's turned it against our citizens.
Yep. That's exactly
And
right.
it's because of leadership at this point.
Yeah, it's all weak leadership, man. I think that is one of the main factors of what's wrong with our country right now.
Yeah.
Why we're, I wouldn't even say going in shambles, but we definitely have a lot of things wrong going on. Everything's sort of topsy-turvy and upside down. It's because we've had weak leadership for so long. And we had 4 years of strong leadership, and everybody, all the weak ones came after him and just tried to destroy him for those 4 years.
Yeah. Prices of everything is high as shit.
It's high as hell.
Yeah, we all know it's because of inflation. It's much worse than our politicians want us to know.
The good white people at Genesis Wealth Company have put together a comprehensive wealth guide to help protect your assets tied to our failing dollar.
Go to goldrushpatriot.com and let our friends at Genesis Gold help you get prepared today. And the best part about this guide, it's 100% free. Tell them the Hodgetwins sent you. Yeah.